Everybody's sitting in the back. They
Back.
never want to be in the front with all the accidents, I know.
Yeah.
So why not? All right. The meeting will come to order. Secretary will confirm that all board members have been notified and notice is properly posted on the association's property in advance of meeting. I can tell you it was because it was posted last Wednesday. All right. Do we have a quorum? I think we do, because we have Rob and Fiona. We said Charlie is on. Wait. Where do we have here? Oh, there's Charlie there. So
I'm
Rob
on,
and
this
Fiona-
is Megan.
Okay, so Megan's here. Not sure where Nancy is.
Okay, good.
All right.
Everybody with Nancy?
Let's get going, because it is a hot one in Florida. All right. So, motion to approve Board of Director meeting minutes from April 17th of this year as previously presented.
They're also in the package, the second thing that.
Yeah, so if you'd like to take a quick gander, you can, but do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
All right.
Second.
All right.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right. Meeting minutes are passed. Thank you. All right. So we're moving on quickly to unfinished business, which is consideration of towing refunds. I do want to give people a little bit of background. Hang on a second. Can you text Nancy the link? Because you can, because the internet's down. Okay. So why we're revisiting this topic, it was discussed at the August meeting last year. It was discovered that we had a motion, but nobody seconded it at the time. Since that time, and basically what's being asked this evening is refunding those people who were towed on June 30th and July 1st when the towing rule enforcement was actually being enforced. To give you a little bit more information on why we're here on this subject, we had an owner send a formal letter to our attorney to complain about the what appeared to be selective enforcement of the rules. Our attorney, Mr. Thompson, asked to meet with the board to understand and kind of get some background on what was going on. So we held a board meeting. One board member was not in attendance, but the rest of the board was there. And we talked through the information that was sent to the attorney, which was a USB with timestamps of when this behavior was documented. Through the discussion with our attorney, it was found that this was a very good example of selective enforcement. Our attorney wanted to send letters to the other board members who were also accused of the behavior, but because they are no longer on the board, those of us who were in attendance said, no, those people are not on the board, some don't even live here, let's not do that. And the recommendation from our attorney was that because this was something that individual directors had told their owners, the clusters those directors represented should be responsible for reimbursing the funds for those tows, not the master. So that is why we have consideration of towing refunds on the agenda for this evening. Is there discussion?
Okay, I have a kind of a lengthy saying, so I'll just go ahead and start. We need to move on from this issue. Mistakes, this is Charlie, by the way. We need to move on from this issue. Mistakes were made by several board members. Residents suffered and need to be compensated. We should not spend more money on legal fees. There was never selective enforcement that put the association in legal jeopardy. There was always uniform enforcement. I will be resigning following a decision on this issue, as I no longer have trust in the directors or the management company after having been threatened by the board's lawyer in a letter that included libelous and disgusting accusations. I do offer the following resolution in order to move on from this. And here's the resolution. The association at large shall reimburse residents who were towed following a change in parking enforcement on who may park in visitor parking spaces. The management company shall compile a list of those who were towed after the change in enforcement and up to 10 days following being notified of the change. The Conto enforcement policy was originally announced at a public board meeting. Enforcement policy was in effect throughout Pebble Springs. There was no selective, discriminatory, or uneven enforcement of the parking rules. Current and former board members shall be held harmless for any and all decisions made on parking as related to this issue. Any legal action or threats of legal action against individual board members shall be ceased. That's a motion.
Was that a motion? I thought Charlie, did you say that was a motion before you read it? I thought you were just reading it. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think you said.
The second part, I can read the motion again.
If you don't mind.
Associate. The second part was the motion where the association at large shall reimburse residents. That was the beginning of it.
All right.
I can reread it if you would like.
No.
Most of you already have a copy, or you all should have a copy that's substantially the same as what I have moved.
Okay, the association at large should reimburse. Okay, I'll pull that language for the motion. Is there a second?
I do have a question. Do we have a list of how many are in each cluster?
We have a
Would
list of
it be
who
the
was towed.
reimbursement?
The last page of that.
Okay, so we do have a list of who was actually towed.
Well, you're on it, that's
I'm on the right
one.
page.
What do you guys mix it
There's a lot
up?
of
Give it to you
pieces.
in
That
order.
one?
Yeah. Yeah. I have costs also.
So, actually, am I right, there's 2 and 6 and 2 and 5?
Yeah.
No, I thought they were 3 and 5.
Nope. 2 and 6, 2 and 5.
Okay.
So 2 and 6 and 2 and 5.
There were 3 vehicles that I have legitimate. They were
Yep.
cars that were in visitor longer than 3 days that were towed without a sticker.
Okay.
Okay.
And then there was one that I was unable to locate. I've located the address, but I don't know whose vehicle it was, because it's not one of the registered and it's not still in the system. And I believe Austin is online, isn't he?
He is.
Austin, it was cluster 46070. And the license, it was a Chevy Equinox, and I don't know whose that was, but if you find and supply the towing bill, that would go on the list also, because it did have a legitimate sticker at the time.
Hi Janet, it's Austin. Sorry, I'm a little bit confused. So the Chevy Equinox, are you saying it's associated with my property?
Yeah, but it might have been a previous owner that left it, but I'm not sure. So it's associated with your property, but
I mean, we've had the unit for a very long time, and we've never had a Chevy Equinox or any, throughout any of our properties, just so you know.
the license plate begins with ECK, and I know that prior to 2022, the official owner per Manatee County
Okay.
was E and C. I can't remember the. So I wondered if it was the prior owner, but that would have been prior to 2022.
No, I mean, the only changes that have been made, by the way, the property's been maintained within my family.
Mhm.
So though the deed has changed, it's just sifted down through our family. It's not, the previous owner is my grandma. And I know she's never had a Chevy Equinox. Nobody in my family has got through any of the condos that we own here in Pebble Springs.
Okay. I think they might have given us put
Yeah,
this
if
one
you
on
wanna
the
give-
list and it wasn't ours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So yeah, I don't think any of our at least not from that unit, have been improperly towed, just so you know, so.
Okay.
I don't know. I've heard a lot about this issue. I still don't quite understand it, but I can just tell you, out of 60, 70, I have nothing to fight. We don't need I don't need a reimbursement because my vehicle wasn't towed.
Okay,
All right.
perfect. Thank you,
Thank
Austin.
you, Austin.
Thanks, Austin.
Yep.
Alright.
So with that, there's 2 in cluster 5 and 2 in cluster 6.
And so
because
you
they
have
just
the
said they don't
actual
go with it.
cost for each tow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shouldn't there be one in cluster 4?
That was the one that we were just talking about.
Because my daughter's car was towed being in a visitor spot and it happened at that time as well.
It was on the 30th or the 1st?
I'll have to look at the things, but I believe it was.
Do you know what her, license plate is? Does she have a special license plate, or do you know?
No, it was, actually I tried calling the emergency number and nobody answered it. And it was her transmission or something happened to her vehicle. It was a CBR, Honda.
No, that's not on.
This was last
That's not
year.
it, yeah.
Yeah, this is like
Last
almost a year
year?
ago?
This was
That
last
was
year.
last year.
Yeah, we're talking about Chevy Equinox.
But
Chevy.
she was told last year when that rule was made up and it wasn't.
There were no rules
Charlie,
made
it
up,
was
let's
said
be
right
careful
here
about
in
what we
this.
say.
The
These are
rule
the
is-
owners who had a legitimate sticker that were parked in a visitor on the weekend of June 30th and July 1st. I have a list of the vehicles here, and you said hers was a what?
Hers was a, it was a CRV,
Honda?
Honda, yeah.
There were no Hondas towed that weekend.
I'll have to look and see when it was, but it was during this time that hers was towed. And she was in a visitor spot because she had to actually push her car from the other side of the street over, and she had a sticker on her car. And we called and tried to leave a message for somebody so she could leave it there because it was getting towed the next day from the towing company, but they towed it instead.
Yeah, she's not one of these that we're under considering.
Um,
Fiona has that list also.
But it
yeah,
wasn't
she was
Charlie.
asking about, cause you know her son got towed?
Her son was towed on the 30th. He was in visitor parking for more than 3 days. He actually got his sticker on July 3rd. Prior to that, he was not issued a sticker.
Oh,
So he is not one of these vehicles that we're discussing. He was towed the same weekend though.
okay, I understand. So you did some real research on that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you have money.
Yes.
All right.
The total, 958.06. Cluster 6 for those two vehicles was 541.56. And for cluster 5, the total was 416.50.
Okay.
So Charlie has a motion on the table. If anyone's going to second it, we second it now. If not, we're going to make a note that it was not put on the table.
So, can I ask a question?
Not yet. The board,
Alright.
we're still trying to get a motion on the table.
Okay.
The reimbursement, we can do the reimbursement, I just think it goes to the clusters themselves. You know, if for some reason something went on in my cluster that I was party to, or I misinterpreted, yeah, I just think it should go in the clusters, I'm not just leave it at that. I don't think it should be the master, because I don't think everybody should incur it.
I'm gonna say this.
I agree with Dawn.
I know that Edna mentioned that we had a conversation, and I'm not gonna call Edna a liar, it's entirely possible at the time we did, I don't remember a conversation. I pulled everything, all the facts, everything that has been sent officially to the owners, and everything that was sent to the owners has that clear statement that says, what the heck does it say? The second car may be parked in any unmarked space within Pebble Springs. And there could have been discussion, you know, and they could have been directed by the directors to park in, to go ahead and park a visitor. One was creating an issue, which is why we contacted Comto and said, why are you not doing this? And they gave us a whole runaround about why. At no point did they say we were instructed not to. it had to do with the,
Inoperable vehicles.
inoperable vehicles and that their new parking, they wanted us to get that thing like Sarasota has, you know,
Yes.
where you pay on your phone
Yep.
and it was just, at no point did they say we were instructed not to do this. So we had no knowledge that had been told to people more than a year prior or whenever Charlie is saying that it was told. So, like I said, I don't know what to do. I've pulled everything that we have been giving people, per your request. When owners sell or rent, they are provided a copy of the rules. When, the rules are changed, all owners are provided a copy of the rules. Every time that someone comes to get a parking pass, they are provided a copy of the parking rules and they sign saying, I got them. So everyone has the exact same wording, and I pulled in this package, I went back and I did not pull like the rules and reprint the page over and over and over. I pulled from the mailing the package, like when we mailed it to every owner, and I said, please read, you know, number 13 vehicles carefully to avoid having your car towed. I pulled the rules that were attached at that time, and they all have the same sentence, so.
And I guess that's the point to make, is that it's not that the rules changed at all. The rules were always the rules.
Yeah, they
That's-
never changed.
That's right, and that's.
So I guess the board needs to decide, did the directors at the time, and not to say, like Charlie said, not necessarily selective enforcement like what was accused of, because that's a little bit over the top. But did they have an understanding, and were they all giving the same instructions to their owners, or were there some directors that had one understanding and some another? Because if that's the case, then you just have to go by what was handed out to the owners. I can tell, you know, someone that I don't know, I can tell someone anything, but if there's fact written elsewhere, you know, I don't, right. I mean, a cop can tell you, go ahead and do 40 through here, but if the, you know what I'm saying, if the sign is 30 and you get pulled over, well, you can't say, someone told me I could do 40, right? So, I mean, I don't know what you all want to do. Charlie's motion is on the table, no one wants to back that up, but does someone else want to make a different
I still agree
motion?
with Dawn. I still think it should be handled by the particular cluster. So I agree with what Dawn mentioned.
So, I'll just speak to that point of, you know, it's like we're all in this together until it comes down to something like this, and now we're not all in this together. There was decisions
That's
by
really interesting.
several board members that made this happen. Compto was not enforcing for over a year. They told that to board members because they didn't want to over-tow. And so nobody was towed during that whole year because Compto told the board members that they were not going to enforce that particular part of the rules. There's no question about that. Then something changed, and we know what changed. I didn't make that decision to change that, and no one was informed of the change. You know, we can argue this back and forth forever, and you're not really gonna get anywhere. Just admit that people made mistakes, and compensate these owners, and let's get this thing over with.
Fiona,
What if we,
Robin?
yeah, what if we compensate them like Dawn and Fiona suggested and it just come out of the clusters? It really isn't a whole lot of money. It's $400 or $500 each cluster, and let's just be done with it, like Charlie said, move on.
I agree with that.
You know, if that's what it takes, it just kind of shows you all what you all are, but I would accept that as a friendly amendment. But don't give me this stuff about, oh, we're all in this together. I don't ever want to hear that again. So I will accept that.
Charlie, this is Megan. I'm just gonna speak for myself, and I've never seen you be willing to,
Me.
here.
Oh,
There's
Nancy's here.
Nancy.
Okay.
Alright, so what does everybody think?
I don't wanna pay it. My cluster didn't get told. My people have all been told from the beginning, read your rules and regs, that's what it is. I was never told nothing about, and I still think it's selective enforcement. I'm not panicked, period.
Well, you don't have any people in your cluster.
This is such a nominal amount, I'm not understanding why, we can't see an agreement for the individual clusters to pay for it. Is that not agreeable to Charlie?
That were affected pay for it.
Okay, can I tell you about procedure here? Someone has to second the first motion, and then we can actually amend it with a friendly amendment to make the clusters pay. If that's what you want to do, that's the procedure to do it.
If no one seconds it, the motion is not on the table.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, Fiona seconded it. So
Okay,
now
what
you,
is the motion?
Which motion?
The motion
Charlie's
is,
motion.
Charlie's motion is that the association at large reimburse those vehicle owners who were towed, because they were parked in Visitor over that weekend.
And there is more to that, yeah.
Yeah. But that's
Who's
the,
doing the reimbursement?
so Charlie's motion is the master reimburses the 4 vehicle owners who, based on Janet's research, should, were subject because of the rule enforcement.
Okay, so I've already said I will accept a friendly amendment. If you want the clusters to pay for it, fine.
Charlie's
You wanna make that
motion,
amendment?
hang on, I wanna make sure everybody understands it, because your motion was much more than that. Charlie's motion was the association at large shall reimburse the residents. We will hold current and former board members shall be held harmless for all decisions made on parking related to this issue. And legal action or threats of legal action against individual board members shall be ceased. So that is the motion
I
on the
think the
table.
motion needs to be redone, yeah, because that's a lot in the motion.
So you want to amend the motion that Charlie proposed?
Yeah, it sounds like we need to deny this one and then restate a new motion.
So the way to do it is someone else put an amended motion on the table, we'll second vote, and if it passes, we'll go back to vote on this motion with the amendment. That's the proper way.
Okay, so I'll put a motion on for each individual cluster to reimburse their own owners. That's it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I can accept that as a friendly amendment without a vote.
Yeah, it's an amendment.
Sorry. Okay, so each individual cluster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, Jan's taking notes.
Robin, Nancy seconds, and we can vote. Is everyone in favor of that?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay. So now we'll go back and vote on the original amendment with the, addition, or change. So the association individual clusters shall reimburse residents who were towed. Current and former board members shall be held harmless for any and all decisions made on parking related to this issue. And any legal action or threats of legal action against individual board members shall be ceased. That's the vote that's up.
Does that summarize it, Charlie?
Yes.
Is there, do we need a second? Or somebody?
Fiona seconded it for him.
So,
So now we need a vote.
those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright, ayes have it.
Okay.
Alright. Okay, moving on to new business, the roof project update. So I'm gonna give a quick update on the roof project. I'm sure many of you have questions because work had kind of halted over in cluster 2, well, come to a dead stop. So what happened was when Pitch submitted for permitting to the county had a specific process they wanted Pitch to follow for the removal and then the installation of the new roofs. They started in cluster 6, and I think we all know what happened in cluster 6, where they stripped the roofs down and it rained because it's Florida in the summertime. Because of the issues with cluster 6 and the damage to how many homes?
15, something like that, 15 units, yeah.
Pitch went back to the county because they were proposing a better solution, which was in small portions, they were going to remove, replace, and then do virtual inspections with the county to make it so they could do this faster and with less damage. The county put us through the renewal or the permitting process from start to finish, like any other new permit. And while Pitch kept contacting the county and asking for an update, asking for them to expedite, they had to go through 4 individual approvers, and one of them did not feel that it was appropriate for us to jump the line, even though we had already been approved. So this time that we've been basically waiting, we've been waiting for Manatee County to approve it. So my understanding as of today from Owen, they will be back on site on Monday to continue the work and finish cluster 2 before moving on to cluster 1. So they anticipate the project should be able to move very smoothly from this point forward, but the delays were very much the county not doing anything very quickly, unfortunately. And thankfully they allowed Pitch to modify the process. The county is who came up with the process, and hopefully this is a lesson learned for the county as well on what you don't do for roofing removal in Florida.
I can add to that just a
Yes.
small smidge. They got the permits per cluster, but what they had to go back and do for 2, since they weren't stripping the entire left side at once, etc., they had to go back and do it for each individual building, had to be listed on the permit, so they could come out and do, yes, the half of that building looks okay, go ahead, yes, the half of that building looks okay, where in cluster 6, they came out and looked at them all at once and said, yep, all this work is good, go ahead and put the roof on, call us when you get the other part. And that didn't work at all.
So thankfully, project is back on. They'll be continuing to work. Hopefully, what did Owen say? That it would be maybe a full week. They did do 2 flat roofs in cluster 2 so far, though.
Yeah.
But before we get to you, we have to just kind of get through the rest of it. So you wanted to talk about wind mitigation.
Yeah, when we were doing the roof project, we didn't discuss this at all. And so, owners have been asking, as a matter of fact, potential buyers have been asking, because specifically cluster 6, the roofs are on, can we have the wind mitigation? We're certainly not gonna pay someone to come out here 6 times, so we'll do the wind mitigations when the roof project is done. But, I just need to approve the cost and make sure that all the directors want to do the wind mitigation. I'm advising yes, obviously, because not only do you get the discount on the association insurance, but all the individual owners get that wind mitigation and get it too. So the first one, the residential buildings and clubhouse wind mitigation from FPAD, is the company that did your insurance appraisal for you and is recommended by your new agent. So that's his. Now this one, the total service and fee is that $19.50 for all the buildings. I think we can safely assume, because they have the policy, they know exactly how many buildings we have, correct? The other one's not far off that. It's $1933.75 with the discount. But if you read up the top, it says 6 clusters, 2 buildings, 12 different roofs, and 1 clubhouse. Now, don't some of the clusters have more than 2 buildings?
No.
Because they're not attached, or they are all
No,
attached?
not according to our plat. There are 2. for.
Only two, because they're
Mhm.
considered the same building.
Yeah, for, at least for insurance purposes,
Okay.
each cluster has 2 buildings.
Okay, so then this one is fine, and then I had one more today, that came in writing, but it's all, like, I literally got an email that said 125 per building. And I said, okay, well, how many buildings are you, I mean, are we talking 10,000 here, or what, how many buildings? So, he came back and he said 2 per cluster, plus the clubhouse. So, it's entirely up to you. There's, FPAT, there's Hope Home, and then there's this, I'm going to tell you this one, I didn't even send it to you yet.
So FPAT is who was,
Recommended by
recommended
Anthony, yeah.
Okay.
And they did our insurance appraisal, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're fully aware of the property itself.
Yep.
And so their cost is a total of $19.50 for the entire community?
For all of that? I think I paid something different.
Well, yeah, that's what
I mean,
so
it
is this
just seems-
$19.50 per cluster, this is $19.50 for the
Total.
entirety of Pebble Spring?
Oh, no, all of it, yeah. Total service fee, $1,950 total. So,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I paid so much too, but.
yeah, and the other one is, 1933, they're not far
Very
off of each other,
comparable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see, I'm looking to see
Yeah.
if he gave.
Would that be the expense of the master or each individual cluster? We're gonna break it up.
The clusters.
Yeah, each individual cluster, we're not talking about a ton of money here. I'll have to figure out what his breakdown is. Let me do, this one, he did the base cost of, he gave you a discount, but this was $175 per building.
Yeah.
So, on the Hope Home inspections was $175 per building, and then he gave a little bit of a discount. So whatever this, 19, why do I keep going into my alarm clock? So it would be $150 per building to go with FPAT. $175 per building to go with Hope Home, though with the discount, it comes out about,
148.75.
less than, about $15 cheaper. And then, of course, I do have the one vaguely for 125, but I don't want to promise that because it seems kind of sketchy, the way I
Like,
received
just
it.
in how you received it, yeah, it makes you
Yeah.
question it. But there, I mean, ultimately, the expectation is the wind mitigation report is going to provide homeowners
Significant
lower
savings.
costs and savings for their own property insurance.
Yes, they'll
Homeowners
get a
insurance.
discount, so will you.
Okay,
So the master
Can
will.
I ask a question?
yes.
Yep.
My understanding of wind mitigation is that the roof has to be attached in a specific way.
Mhm.
Has anyone relayed this to Pitch?
Pitch
The-
actually works with this.
FPAT, but you know what, Nancy? That's part of the
Yeah.
permitting process. What is required for the wind mitigation is now also the county permitting requirement. So there, it's,
Okay.
yeah. You
Okay,
can't do
I
it without
just
that
wanted to make
hurricane grade.
sure.
I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to me.
I agree, I think we
Yeah.
should do it.
I agree.
I mean, especially if it's gonna help save us some money and for, savings for the owners as well, so.
Yep.
So you
That's
just,
almost like double savings.
we like that. So you need a motion essentially?
I
Yeah,
really
we
not,
just
because
approve.
it's not that much per unit, I mean,
Okay.
per cluster. I just kinda need you guys to decide you want me to get it done and which company. I mean, I'm obviously gonna recommend go with the one your insurance company knows,
Right.
Yeah.
for a difference
I
of
agree.
$15,
Yeah.
I'm not.
I think we're all
Yeah,
in
I
agreement
think
with that
that's-
one.
I think that's the best way to go.
Okay.
So this will be started once the roofs are complete?
Yeah, we wanna get them all done at once. The only thing that, Anthony, your agent may do, since he knows them pretty well, and maybe they'll come out without charging us for a second visit, cause that's what they do when you send them back out. We don't care about the first visit. Is that he may have them come out, it depends on, so for instance, right now, all these roofs will be done in time for your renewal, which should begin, like he'll begin pricing 30 days in advance, which would be mid-August. But we just saw what happened with cluster 2. We don't know what weather or delays might bring. So he may, if 5 clusters are done or 4.5, he may send them out and then have them come back and finish later. But,
Knowing that it's
as
the
of
same
now, it
amount.
should be done prior to renewal, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And our renewal is in September, so we still have, like,
It's like September 12th.
yeah.
So, August 12th is about when they start shopping, within
Okay.
that 30-day window. Yeah.
Okay, so we're shooting for August 12th, all right. So, yeah, I think everybody is in favor of going with Felton Property Assessment Team, right?
Mhm.
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
awesome. Save us some money.
Yeah, I mean, all of your owners, everyone has asked for it over the years,
And so
and they're so old.
they will provide the report for each unit owner as well, or how does that work for people
I
who
will
want to
get
send it?
13 reports for each building.
Okay,
And I will list on the name of it, like which units it covers. It'll also be listed on there, so if you want yours, I'll give you the one that covers your
Okay.
unit. You don't need them all, you just need
Okay.
that one for your building. Yep.
all right, cool.
But when we have them, we'll send them out to the owners right away, or post them on the website, yes, everybody has them.
Awesome, okay.
They're gonna immediate
Before we
discount.
move on, Sean, you,
Part of that was the wind mitigation, I was asking for that. The other part is, who's paying for the damage because of that on cluster 6?
the roofing company.
That was my next question.
So the roofing company is paying for all of the damage done. So the owners are not paying for anything. Yep.
Are we having to get is it costing us more for the permits, for the constant coming out, having to do, are they charging it, and is the roofing company you know?
I don't know if they're charging them again, but if they are, they're not
No.
passing it on to us.
You remember though that, so Manatee County, this is something Charlie dug up for us.
Oh, that's right.
Manatee County was waiving roofing permits as a result of Hurricane Milton.
That's right.
So we actually didn't pay for the permitting for this process.
Okay.
So yeah,
You still had to go through the process, there was just no charge
Yeah.
affiliated, yeah.
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Any other questions on roof and wind mitigation? Oh, okay. Next item is discussion regarding accounts receivables. So this was something that and I've spoken to a couple of different directors about this, and just so we could get a grip and a better understanding of delinquencies, how they're being managed, you know, what the process is, and what we're actually looking at for delinquencies throughout the community. So Janet put together this report for us. I don't know if you all who are on the phone can hear that thunder, but welcome to Florida in the summertime. My dog is losing her mind right now, I'm sure.
It's usually May, we get this rain every day,
Yeah,
but
it's
all of a
late.
sudden, yeah.
So that's why, for the board, that's why we have this on our agenda, is to get a better understanding of the accounts that are in arrears and how we are, basically what we're looking at. So,
You're handing this to me?
well, I don't know if you all have any questions from the board on what it is. You should all have the documentation that came with it, which breaks down those who are in arrears, how much they're in arrears, and all of that.
Well, I wrote on some that they were going to the attorney today, and that's a lie, they'll go tomorrow because,
Holiday.
it was a holiday, I did work, but it was a holiday, well, obviously I'm working.
What about and then there's some for the next month, right? For
Yeah.
7/17?
There's some for the next month, so, just as an FYI, because I said this last night, I think only Laura and Megan heard it, because we were on with the cluster 2 only, people, but that is that, the statute mandates how money is applied as it arrives. It is not what the owners indicate on their check, it doesn't matter. As money comes in, it goes to the furthest back charge. It goes to attorney's fees first, then it goes to some other stuff. I can't remember the order of it off the top of my head, but then it goes to the assessments. So a lot of times, the most recent assessment is what is showing as owed. So some of these are bigger amounts, but they aren't going until July 17th. So that, all that means is the last letters, the last collection letter went out on 6/19, as you all know, because of the roof assessment and the choice that people had. I didn't have her send letters last month until we got everything situated and the payments going on. Now we do. So this month, anybody who was already late last month prior to that special assessment or roof thing or whatever, it is going to the attorney first thing in the morning. And all those who, now that the charge is 30 days old on the ledger and haven't paid. are now, they got a letter that went out on the 17th, what was that, 2 days ago? And next month, if they haven't paid in full, they will go to the attorney. So everyone's going at the 30-day mark. It's just the way the charges went on, that some of the people with a higher balance didn't go this month and lower balance did. It depended on where the funds were owed from, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
I just have to quick check with the board. So do any of the board members have questions about the info?
Nope.
Okay. Yes, now you may ask
Go
your
ahead.
question.
Sorry.
Can you please tell us who you are?
I'm sorry, I'm Jeff Smith.
Okay.
At 6130.
Oh, you're right over here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
once.
You wrote my nice email I told you about.
Oh, behave.
Back on the naughty list, sorry.
Back on the naughty list?
Yeah.
So what are the costs you're talking about? Is this about the roof? Or-
No, these are owners who are behind in their payments. Yeah. Some of them are the rough, but because we gave people that choice and we weren't sure who was late until, because it was a mid-month thing,
Right.
we wanted to get past the 30 days
Right.
and then send a
Yeah.
letter of late,
and
yeah.
that's
so
why I pestered you 5 times, so I know that you got me.
Make sure,
Like-
it's